Jokic threes. 2 games already started. We have 8 total tonight, including the top 2 teams in the East playing right here on NBA TV at 8:30. Welcome to Game Time, presented by State Farm. Chris Miles here with David Griffin and Brendan Haywood. Got to pass the knuckles.
Got to pass it down, man. Pass it down.
The Raptors and the Bucks meeting for the 3rd time this season. Milwaukee won the first 2 matchups this year. Why have they gained that advantage in this series so far?
Well, I think it's just in general terms the way Milwaukee's been playing. If you look at this team, they are clearly, by any metric, playing the best basketball in the NBA right now. They're number 1 in opponent second chance points. They're number 1 in opponent fast break points against. They're number 1 in opponent points in the paint. They're number 1 in offensive rating. So not only are they not beating themselves, they're uber efficient on the offensive side of the ball. And that's the formula Toronto used last year to win 59 regular season games. And Milwaukee's taken that to another level.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head. They're very efficient. They spread you out. They're hard to guard. They compete. They move the ball around. They do everything you want from an offensive standpoint. They compete defensively. And then with these shooters, with Brook Lopez, Middleton, Malcolm Brogdon shooting 44% from 3, all those guys shooting north of 37% from 3, they become a very tough team to guard, especially when you have somebody like Giannis that's so special one-on-one.
You mentioned all of those other guys because in the first matchup between these 2 teams, Giannis and Kawhi both sat out. In the second matchup between these 2 teams, Giannis and Kawhi played, but neither hit their season averages. Kawhi had 20, Giannis had 18. What are you expecting from those 2 stars in this matchup?
Well, I think both of these teams and both of these coaches have the ability to shut down one thing that the other team wants to do, right? If they identify Giannis as being the one they have to play against, Toronto has enough length and athleticism to deal with that. So the counter to that is for Milwaukee to get more from Eric Bledsoe and Middleton. And what's been interesting in this series is both teams are also very deep, and their depth of shooting is an issue relative to Milwaukee. What you said about Brogdon and Middleton, it just goes on and on, the number of people that are making shots. But I think the biggest change in this dynamic is the shooting 5, the Brook Lopez piece, pulling a big away from the rim, which then enables Giannis to be freakishly effective in the paint. It's scary.
It definitely is scary. And we talked about this last night. We're going to talk about it again. When you have Brook Lopez, who's not just a stretch 5, he's shooting 6, 7 threes a game. Like, Klay Thompson might not shoot that many threes a game. And the fact that he's hitting a high percentage of his threes, it creates a totally different dynamic. I can't wait to see these guys go head to head. I expect Giannis and Kawhi to both have really good games, and especially Toronto. Things didn't really go the way they wanted to in that last game against San Antonio. When you're coming off a tough loss like that, especially an emotional loss when they had a little bit extra on the line, you want to put your best foot forward your next game.
Certainly when we talk about three-pointers and takes and makes in a game, we can't overlook the Houston Rockets and their reigning MVP. They're back in action tonight as well against the Portland Trail Blazers. Thursday night, the Bearded Ones showcased the full skill set against the back-to-back defending champions.
Gerald Green to inbound. Harden trying to get free. Down to 3, down to 2. It's a 3. Good! Good! He got it! James Harden, a flamethrower! Incredible shot!
Indeed it was, but check out this incredible quote from Daryl Morey. The Rockets GM says James Harden is the best offensive player of all time. What about Kareem, Michael, Kobe, guys like that? Brendan, is that hyperbole to say that James Harden is the greatest offensive player of all time?
I think it would be a better quote if you said he's the best offensive player of maybe this season, or maybe he's the best offensive player of this range, of this time period. But all time, I think it's very hard when you talk about what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was able to do, when you talk about what Michael Jordan was able to do. These guys were, Mike, especially Mike, he had plenty of seasons where he was over 30 points per game, between 30 and 35 points, and shooting incredible percentages along the way. I think from a one-on-one standpoint, when you look how physical the game was back in the day, Michael Jordan, to me, is still the best individual offensive player of all time. And if you put him in today's game where you couldn't touch him, I think that he would be even better. And it's hard to imagine Mike being even better, but he played through the bad boy Pistons and those Knicks teams that were really, really physical. You can't touch people now. He would have lived at the free throw line also, and he would have been able to get his game off in the mid-post.
I think the most accurate version of that quote may have been, he has been put in position to be the most prolific offensive player in the regular season. And I think that's possible. I think you could argue that. I think there are a lot of different statistical metrics you could use to say he has been put in position to be the most prolific. But to say you're the best offensive player of all time, like you said, if I take Michael Jordan, I put him in this era, and I tell him to do the things that they're asking James Harden to do, it's possible he grows and evolves into doing that at an altogether different level. You just don't know. But I certainly think he's been put in position. He's been really empowered, frankly, to take what used to look like horrifically bad shots. Mike D'Antoni is very comfortable with him taking those shots, and because they're running their entire offense through him, he goes 17, 18 seconds on the shot clock and then goes to a step back three. By the numbers, he only has to make a certain number of those to be the most prolific and efficient offensive player. That's fact. It's not a lot of fun to watch. He's awfully.
Oh, let's start the debate.
Time out, Griff. I'm not going to let you come up here and slander James Harden's game.
No slander.
Saying it's not fun to watch. James Harden. You watched that Golden State game, that wasn't fun to watch. James Harden was hitting crossovers, step back. He crossed Clay over, gave him the little slap on the butt, hit the shot on Draymond. He's making such great individual moves. I can't say that. I understand he goes to the free throw line a lot. I understand his usage is very high. But guess what? With Chris Paul out, I don't think I want Daniel House creating shots for himself. So I think I love what he's doing, and I think it's exciting.
So for me, I'm not trying to slander him at all. I think what he's done has been mind-numbing. And it's a mea culpa on my part for not appreciating him enough before this run. It really is. It's remarkable. I don't like watching someone go dribble tantrum for 18 seconds. I don't. I like the ball to move. I like the game when it's symmetry in motion. I like it when it's the floor spread and the ball hums around. Now, look, the reality is most of the best players in this league play a very similar way to James. It's just that they don't have the ability to take and make difficult shots like he does, so they have to draw and kick, which then starts the ball moving around.
I got a question for you.
So I'm holding him responsible for the fact that he can actually make shots that other people don't get to take. What does Steph Curry look like if he's not playing with other players who demand the ball and demand movement? Steph Curry can take and make almost all of those same shots. But he's not playing that way. And I would rather watch that product personally.
And I think that Steph Curry can play a different way and he can play a different style because he gets absolute spacing when you talk about Klay Thompson and when you talk about those other players out there, Kevin Durant. He doesn't have to play that way. James has to play that way. Similar, my question was, when you say you don't like James Harden's style playing that way, it's the exact same style LeBron James had last year when they went to the finals.
Right, but he's drawing and kicking.
But who else was LeBron going to let Jordan Clarkson take him to the playoffs? No, that is a recipe.
Totally get it.
That is a recipe for failure. I think that James Harden, he does have high usage, but guess what? I think a lot of guys have high usage in this league, and when you look at Houston's team, especially right now with what they have with Chris Paul being out, I think he has to play like this, and I love seeing it, and it's been successful. We just saw LeBron go to the finals last year, basically with him and 4 Rocks starting.
It's a true story.
Well, you mentioned that success. It's been 12 games of it, and what a run it's been for James Harden. 40 points a night over the last 12 games.
I got you back, James.
40 points in each of the last 5 games. Listen to the names on that list. Jordan, Kobe, AI. Those are the only other players who do it in the last 50 years.
Are they good? Those names sound like good names.
I think they're historically good.
They're pretty good.
Will that streak extend to 6 games tonight, Brendan?
I'm saying yes. I'm going over. I think James is on a run. I think, once again, the usage is high. He's hot right now. He's incredibly confident. And there's not really a player on Portland's team that I worry about defensively that can get into James and force him to do something that he doesn't want to do or make him uncomfortable. So I think James goes over 40 tonight. I'm
going to go with the under. And the reason
Hey.
I'm going to go with the under. And the reason is, for me personally, I just look at that list. I look at the names on that list. I look at how many times he's done it, and I'm going to go for regression to the mean. He's due to have a regular superstar kind of night where he gets 34.
Okay.
Maybe we should save this for later tonight and see who came out on top with their prediction. Okay.
You seen movie Trading Places? Gentleman's bet?
$1.
$1 Winthorpe.
Placed at 7:10 p.m. Warriors also back on the court tonight against the Sacramento Kings. Griff, we know net rating is one of your favorite stats. How telling is it that the Warriors have the lowest net rating they've had over the last 5 years this particular season?
I don't think terribly so, because if you would have spotted someone at this time in the year, the injury situation they would have dealt with, the inability they had to get Draymond and Steph on the court together, I think you would have had to assume that it wouldn't look very good. What concerns me about it, though, is that this team doesn't have the depth it had even last year. So they're going to have to continue to get incredible production from the starters and hope that somebody steps to the fore on the bench. That team is really missing, and I think one of the reasons the net rating suffers so much, they are really missing the vertical spacing element of Damian Jones and or JaVale McGee. And in the absence of those guys, they need to find it, because it's really difficult for their offense to flow as smoothly if you don't have to honor the dive.
You know salaries better than me. How much did the Lakers pay JaVale McGee?
It's a great question. I don't know the answer.
It wasn't a high salary,
It was
right?
not a lot.
Sometimes you never miss a good thing until it's gone. I think JaVale McGee was taken for granted to a certain degree. He obviously has shown that if given more opportunity, he can play out, he can stay out there on the court. They never really believed in him, and now they truly miss him. I know Damian Jones played that role for a while, but when you have an athletic roller like Damian Jones, JaVale McGee, or for Houston, a Clint Capella, guys like that, when they screen and roll, they mean so much to your team offensively because they activate the weak side of the defense. Those guys roll down the lane. Weak side defenders understand I have to meet this guy early and up in the lane, or else he's going to be dunking on my head. You don't have to do the same thing with guys that aren't quite as athletic. You can rotate to them later. But when those guys have to rotate up the lane, what that does is it creates those passes to the corner. It creates guys cutting back door for lobs. It creates a lot of ball movement on the weak side, and you miss that when guys like JaVale McGee and Damian Williams are not on this team. Throwing the fact that Draymond Green, when he's struggling shooting the ball this year, it really means they're struggling at the 5 spot.
So you're saying minimum for JaVale McGee was money well spent? That's what he makes, $1.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Basically, they didn't realize they had a good thing. And JaVale McGee is, I'm not going to say he has a lot of haters, but JaVale McGee has been miscast, and a lot of people think that he isn't intelligent or he isn't this and he isn't that. He's been cast a certain way. I played with him. He's very intelligent. He's a hard worker. He's a good rim runner. And now he's gotten great coaching, and he does what he does well. And I think that Golden State messed up by not bringing him back, especially at that low of a number.
Well, and they may have wanted to. Maybe he wasn't willing to play in Golden for minimum, and he felt better about the Lakers situation.
Did they have more than the minimum? I mean, listen, I'm not saying pay the man $25 million, but did you have $3 or did you have $5 million for JaVale McGee? He was a major part of your championship team.
They didn't even match Patrick McCaw now because it was $11.6 million in space.
I will say this, going back to JaVale, in the NBA Finals, he had some very impactful minutes on the defensive end when he would switch the screen and roll. He was sliding his feet very well with LeBron James.
Well, we know that Golden State, it's defensively that they've struggled a little bit more this year as opposed to offensively. The Kings and Warriors, both in the top 5 in scoring and pace this season, on average, combining to score over 230 points a game. Over under. We're going to see 230 tonight between these two teams.
Blue Horseshoe says take the over.
I'm going with Griff. I'm going over as well.
I don't know who Blue Horseshoe is, but I think that you know what you're talking about.
Is that your bookie, Griff?
It's a movie reference. We'll fill you in on it later.
Okay, is he betting on the Bucks or the Raptors? That's the interesting question tonight as those two teams set to take the court right here on NBA TV at 8:30.
Welcome back to Game Time. Here is a look at the Eastern Conference standings. We've talked Bucks, Raptors. We've talked Pacers. What about the 76ers? We haven't gotten into them much. And currently fourth in the East, 16-8 since the deal that brought Jimmy Butler in the blockbuster trade to Philadelphia. Things seemed like they were going okay until today when there were reports that there was some contention between Coach Brett Brown and Jimmy Butler, a potentially disrespectful encounter that happened in front of the team in a film session. He's not happy with the way he's being used in the offense, is what the report is saying. Does this surprise you? Can you see where Jimmy Butler's coming from? And what was your reaction when you heard it, guys? Steve, we'll start with you.
You know, first of all, let's look at the 76ers. This is a team that's 2.5 games out of first place. And I don't think they played their best basketball. And also, you give them a little leeway because you got to give them a chance because of the trade. They've traded 2 guys for Jimmy Butler, and you figure not bad to be only 2.5 games out of first place. Now to hear this from Jimmy Butler coming out of camp, that's him and the coaching staff. To me is you go into an organization, no doubt about it, the first option is Joel Embiid. No doubt about it that the basketball is going to be handled by Ben Simmons, and you got a guy who's a pass first. So obviously you're the second option for his offense. I don't understand how it could be a problem where you start talking about offense when you pertain to Jimmy Butler. You're going to have to play off Joel Embiid, and there's nothing wrong with that. You play off great players. And if you're a guy that's a spot-up shooter, it fits perfect. If you're a guy that's a slasher, fits perfect because he's going to get double-teamed and he's a good passer. I think you're not looking at the big picture. If all this is true about Jimmy Butler, you're supposed to come there and help this team winning. You have a chance to win. I'm a little disappointed in Jimmy Butler, if this is true, that he's complaining about how his role is in offense. B. Wood.
I'm a little bit disappointed if this is true also. And then I'm also looking at it from a standpoint of Jimmy Butler is a free agent this offseason. You would think that he would be on his best behavior because in Chicago he had problems with players and coaches. In Minnesota, he had problems with players and coaches. And now this is the third stop, Philly, problems with some players and coaches. And it can't be everybody else. At some point, we're going to shine the light on you. So you would think Jimmy Butler would be on his best behavior in a contract year trying to get max money, and he's not. And if you're other teams and you're watching from the outside, you have to be scared to give Jimmy Butler this big money. Do you give this guy $200 million? Because money just makes you more of what you already are. If he's cutting up right now on his salary right now, what do you think you're going to do? What do you think he's going to do if you give him $200 million? So I was a little shocked by this. I thought he would at least behave this season. And if this is true, because a lot of times things come out that aren't true, but if this is true, I'm a little disappointed in Jimmy Butler. I don't think he's playing his hand the right way. Sometimes you have to bite your tongue and you have to go about your business differently than you have been in the past. And that's what he needs to do. If you have a problem with the coach, you don't have to air it out in front of everybody. You can have a meeting and say, listen, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. You can take Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons out to dinner and say, hey, guys, how are we going to do these things differently? This is what I'm thinking. There's a mature way to handle adversity, and then there's the immature way. Too many times we hear about Jimmy handling adversity in an immature manner.
Brendan, for me, is you look at it and there's a lot of players. You see great players. You say, how is it going to work? And that's just our opinion, whether it works or not. But you have a Ben Simmons who just is basically a point guard who's dishing, and obviously he can score. But he's a guy who wants to facilitate. You have a J.J. Redick who's a spot-up shooter. And you have a dominant big in Joel Embiid who can do pretty much everything. It seems like it's perfect for me for you to be that guy, the second option, slashing, handling the basketball after double teams, in the break, Ben Simmons, you running with him. Whatever style they wanted to play, it looks like to me from an offensive standpoint, it fits. Now, you might not have the same type of numbers. The numbers might have to come down for our scoring, but bottom line is that you're playing with some great players, some young players that can go get better, and you're only 2.5 games out of first place in East. I'm baffled if this is a true story.
Do you think that Jimmy realizes that Joel Embiid is the best player on that team? It doesn't sound like it.
He should.
He should, but do you think he realizes
it? Sounds like at minimum he would settle for the 2 best players are him and Joel Embiid, not Joel Embiid then him. And I don't think he wants to be the guy that gets the kick-out pass for the shot. He wants to be the one that gets to the rim and creates, but they don't have a room in there.
For me,
you mentioned JJ, but he's their only shooter.
It's not about who's the 2 best players. I think what I heard from what we were saying is obviously speculation. The offense in the role, and to me, is you're going to be the second option.
Right.
You're going to be the other guy at the end of games that he runs plays for, and we showed that in Philly. That's the part I'm having. Who's the best player? We can debate that. The first option is Joel Embiid and the best player.
There's no debate.
And there's no debate with that one. But then other than that, who's 1, 2, and 3 in his big 3? It really doesn't matter because Ben Simmons is not a guy that's looking to score like that other than to facilitate the basketball. You're the second guy as far as our offensive in that offense to be able to play off Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I just don't know if he's happy with that. And we've seen he was challenging younger guys in Chicago. He was challenging his teammates. In Minnesota, he said those guys didn't want to win. Well, what's the problem here? Your team is winning. You have a shot to do something special
for a long time.
And if you're, like I said, if you're another team, when you bring Jimmy Butler in, he might not be the guy on the team. You might bring in 2 max guys. How will he mesh with your other players? How will he mesh with that next star that you bring him in with? Jimmy has to realize all eyes are on him right now. Everybody's looking to see what he's going to do, and he's not painting a positive picture.
And then the one thing for me is, and obviously we got the reports, I'm waiting to hear what Jimmy Butler has to say about this last little disagreement.
It can't always be everybody else. Sometimes it's got to be you.
Well, as you pointed out, Brendan, he's always challenged coaches everywhere he's been. And not just teammates, not just being vocal to the media, but challenging the coach. And I think when you're a part of a new team who has a lot of questions going on right now, I was just with the team. First you get the Markelle Fultz news that he has the thoracic outlet syndrome, that all of his shooting woes are actually because of an injury. You lose him. Then you have Ben Simmons, who he had not hit a single shot outside of 14 feet until Christmas Day when he hit that 22-footer. That was his first shot outside of 14 feet.
He hasn't hit a three-pointer since 2015.
It's really unbelievable. Then Joel Embiid speaking out about not wanting to be extended to the three-point line as much to create more space inside and wanting to play,
and then all that
role inside.
2.5 games out of first.
Right.
That's
and
what
Jimmy
I like.
Butler picks now
2.5 games
to
out of
speak
first.
up about his role. I mean, they need time to figure this all out. It's just
We
they're
have a lot of
running out
time.
of time with the halfway point coming up.
Summertime's coming as well.
Yeah, summertime's coming as
I
well.
don't know if they're going to figure it out. You are who you are. You can change who you are, but that's just the top layer. Man, you was who you was before you got here. The great philosopher, Jay-Z.
Well, I'm glad.
I was about to say.
Well, I'm glad we got to the Jimmy Butler news, you guys. We have lots of other games.